All right, so 3D integration is this assignment. This is going to be our last big assignment that we do. We'll have 2 more assignments that are kind of technique based, just kind of going through and making sure you see these techniques and can do them. Things that you would typically need to do out in the industry. But there won't be like a big assignment kind of like this one kind of revolving around it, okay? So this one will take us probably until the 15th. Now with any of our assignments, as you look at them, there's a level that you can get to that makes it portfolio ready. Just because you did the assignment to my specifications doesn't mean it's portfolio ready. Portfolio ready means that it looks like a nice piece, that it's blended nicely, the colors are great, it tells a good story, it shows someone what you're capable of. So with this is a really good opportunity to do this because there's lots of chances, lots of opportunities to do that kind of stuff. So April 15th will be the due date. That week, remember, we're here on that Monday, but not the rest of the week, okay? Including today, we have 4.5 weeks left of the semester, right? So this semester is going quick. The idea here is we're bringing 3D rendering and elements together to work with 3D inside Nuke, importing a sequence, geometry, cameras. We did that last time, creating transitions. I'm going to show that today. Working with frame offsets and syncing animations with footage, work with that, or I'll talk about that too. And then adding appropriate finishing techniques that we've already talked about, but just kind of stuff to look at. We'll talk about more of that today as well. Turn-ins, screenshot of our node graph, and movie. And again, some of these, if you see an opportunity to show the process of how you got from A to B, definitely show those processes. When I went through and I graded all those matte paintings, it was actually a bit difficult in some of the cases. I had to go back to your node graph to see what it was you changed. Someone looking at that as a finished piece is not going to know what you did unless you show, here's the original, here's this piece, here's that piece, all coming together. So just be aware of that when you go and start showing your stuff, is that you should show how the pieces all work together. I lowered the resolution on this. My computer was already like dog slow at that higher resolution. So I lowered it to 1200 by 507. I'll show that again just so you can see where we need to adjust those. I have a final sequence animation set up on the Dropbox folder, okay? This is a finished product of one camera. Now it may not be fully finished, I may still tweak some stuff, but this is the initial sweeping camera. Well, there's no background right now in the new footage. Yeah. Okay. So a couple things that we need to work on or see how to do is, number one, we have all this footage. We have a sequence that we need to time out. We want it to be fluid. You could go through and line it up. So right here at, let's say, 31, he starts kicking these things on. So every one of those sequences, I could have gone into After Effects and made an animation that starts at frame 31, where it animates coming on, does its thing, and then at whatever frame it goes away, it's way down here. I animate it then going away. But what we should do is figure out a way that we can do most of that work inside of Nuke. How can we trigger these things and make it updatable? Because what we don't want to do is, let's say we come back in a week or 2 weeks and the art direction has changed a little bit and the timing is now different. Then we'd have to go back into After Effects, re-render out all those things after we've updated it, and then come back into Nuke and re-update all those things. If we can set it up so that we can change a couple things and it automatically change the timing of all those animations, that's going to be much better than having to go through that other process, okay? So we'll work on that too. Remember, there's 3 cameras, so at the end product of this, you'll actually render out all 3 cameras and then put those together inside of After Effects or Premiere and do like a little video of it. Cut here, however you want to line it up so that it makes sense. It doesn't make sense here. What's he doing? I can't even see what's going on that screen. If I have that other camera, the lower left one, I can see what he's doing and I can see how he's hiding that stuff. So I would cut to that other camera, he'd wipe that away, and then we'd be able to see it. You don't need to have all of the screens active, but again, looking at what this does is it really shows the complexity of it. Okay, having all of this stuff happen in here, having him kind of like behind these pieces of footage and in between them, really shows off our ability to add to that. Here he's obviously in front of this piece, and then right there he's behind that piece. So that shows how we're able to integrate 3D into that mix. It's not just like stuck on top of it, okay? And then obviously everything's animated. A lot of these are just like random pieces I have. These look like the same piece, but they're not. This is actually a different animation. Yes, ma'am. Yep. So that was one of the things. Well, that was one of the things I tried in After Effects, okay? So initially I did this in After Effects 2 times, and then I just couldn't get the placement exactly where I wanted it. So I switched. I said, all right, I'm just going to do that animation inside Nuke too, which happens. I thought I'd be able to get close enough where it would be like, okay, he's kind of hitting it and it works, but I needed it to be exact. I needed the timing to be exact. So I switched it so it's inside Nuke. I'll show that as well. All right, so again, this goes crazy slow, but it is what it is. It's a lot of stuff going on. This is what all of those screens look like when all the screens are up there. All right, so first things first, let's go and grab one of these pieces of let's go and change our settings. So I'm going to hit S. This is where we set up that full-size format. So I just went in here to edit, and I edited it so it was 1200 by 507, so I know that my resolution is that. When I brought in my new footage way down here at the bottom, all my footage is 1200 by 507, okay? Ensuring that the same resolution is all over the place will make sure that everything fits nicely and neatly together. If it's not, then something's going to be off somewhere, okay? So you just have to make sure anywhere you had that 1200 by 507, you put that back in there. Another thing that was happening, where are you at, right here? Originally, we needed to create a mask around the geometry Jerry so that he is actually sandwiched between those things. For whatever reason, Nuke something, we're losing that channel. It's not just mine, it's several people are losing it. So on this constant here that is connected to the geometry of Jerry, if you make a new channel and you call it Jerry, and then the next one is just Jerry.mask, everything should work. Okay, and then when you go down here to the merge, you just make sure that Jerry is your B, and then everything is cool and it works. Okay, so that's all the fixes for that. All right, now let's get into how I was able to get all these pieces to transition on. So here is one of my pieces. Now this is processed through After Effects. I did go through, I put some grid on there, I did some color adjustments. I just wanted it to look kind of technological, okay? So I went into After Effects and I rendered it out. My camera never really gets terribly close to any one of these renderings, okay? They're kind of far away from it. So instead of me rendering each one of these out at 960 by 540, I actually thirded it. So it's 320 by 180, okay? The images are just smaller. In After Effects, when I rendered my stuff out, I went into here. Here's one of my videos, okay? I went to Export, Add to Render Queue. I chose TIFF. I said Resize, and I just took this number here and divided it by 3. And then that gave me 320 by 180. That's what I rendered out each one of these sequences out to bring them into Nuke. Now, to get this to turn on or turn off, I also made these. I made a transition to go off. Happens too quick. There you go. And then I made a transition to come on. There it is. Okay, so I have 2 animations. One of them is going from black to white. The other one is going from white to black. And I did that so I could basically make an alpha channel that I could then use on all my pieces of footage. For the assignment, I'm fine if you want to just go to your, where am I at here? If you want to add a grade node, I think that's what it was, and then just animate it going on and off. If I go here to this piece of footage, I add a grade node there. I also have to shuffle in an alpha channel to this. There we go. And I'll also add a pre-mult after this so we can see the results of it. All right, so if you want to animate the gain going off on the alpha channel, that's fine. It works for the assignment, but it looks pretty horrible, right? It's just like fading off or fading on, and I don't care for it, especially when we have the opportunity to do other stuff with it. So I hit delete, now I'm waiting. All right, so here's my piece of footage. I gave it an alpha channel, so I shuffled in a white into the alpha channel to get it started. And then what I'm doing is I'm reading in my my transition on. So here is that transition on, right there. Now this happens right away, so I can't have it happen right away, otherwise all of these would just turn on automatically, okay? So I added a time offset, we've used that before. There we go. And it's blue right now, I'll show you why it's blue, but basically this is synced up so that when he does the initial wipe, it turns on right after that, okay? And they're all kind of staggered, they're not all synced up at the same time. So this one will turn on roughly at frame 30, so if I view the time offset, it stays completely black until 30, and then it kicks on, okay? And then all I'm doing is copying the red channel into the alpha channel. We've done that before too. Basically, I just need to create a brand new alpha channel on top of this. So here's the original alpha, completely white. Now I'm copying the alpha from this one, which means that before this, it's completely black. And then right at that point, it's filling up with white. So think of it like a mask. There's nothing showing, that thing kicks on, and now the full thing is showing. Now to get it to go away, I had to do a transition off. And again, I have this, which goes from black to white. There it is. Sorry, white to black. And then I did a time offset on it, which is again set to a certain number. And then I just copied that into here. Okay. Now this mix has to be keyframed. If I didn't have this set here and this mix keyframed, I think this is 239. I lied. No, it is 239. Why aren't you showing? Oh, there it is. Right there. If I didn't have this mix keyframed, what would happen is it would just go away, or it would stay there the whole time. So even at the very beginning, it would be there. And then at the very end of this is a pre-mult just to apply all those effects to it, okay? So let me make a new one right here just so you can see it. So I'm going to go to my, not the alley, that's something different. Alley is not alley. I'll do chickens, or, yeah, I'll do lightsaber, there we go. All right, so here's my lightsaber, animates like that. I need to give it an alpha channel, so I'm going to shuffle in an alpha channel. Okay, so now I have an alpha channel. Now I'm going to read in my transitions. Okay, so here's off, here's on. So I'm going to copy this into here. And I'm going to say this is going to be the red channel. And if I rewind this and hit play and look at the alpha, I see nothing. And then when I hit play, it transitions on. Now I don't want this to transition on right away, like I said, so I add that time offset. And then I set this to whenever I want it to start, frame 50, frame 20, whatever it is. It's thinking. There we go. Okay, so it kicks on right then. Let's say at frame 200 I want this to go away. So I'm going to copy this one in here. I'm going to set it to be the red channel goes to the alpha. I'm going to do another time offset. And I'll say transition away at 200. So if I view this, before the other one transitions, this one is white at the start of it. So it's reading as white at the start of that. So I have to basically turn this off until I'm ready to transition it. So if I go to this copy, I set this to 0. There it goes. I wait till I'm at about 200. Right there. It can happen anytime after the other one's turned on. Just have to make sure it's on before then. There we go. Okay. So now this alpha will then take over, and then I'll have it transition on right about 50, and then it goes until it hits about 200. I'll skip ahead. And then at 200, it transitions off. Okay. And then I add a pre-mult. And now I can actually see those things transition on and transition off. Okay. Now this becomes my footage. It's not just the single image, it's not just the color bars or the constant. That's the result of my footage. That's what gets connected to the actual piece of geometry right there. Now, the other part that I did to get everything to work a little bit easier, let's say that I have a piece of footage come in and I know that I want to offset each one of these. Instead of me taking this time offset, this one starts at 27, and then going to this one and setting it to 28, and then going to this one and setting it to 29, what I did was I connected the offsets together. So when I change one, it would change the other one. So this is how we would do that. So I'm going to go to this, and I'm just going to copy this and paste it just so we can see how this would work. So this one is set to 50. I want to connect this offset to that number so that when I change one, the 51, the other one will change. So I'm going to go to number 42. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say add expression. Now if you've used 3D before, expressions are like basically throughout 3D rigging. If you used After Effects, they're in After Effects as well. The nice thing is it tells you right here how things are titled. So this is time offset, and you have to get the numbering or the naming exact. This is going to connect these two attributes together. So if I change one, it'll change both of them. Oh, what does it do? It just takes, instead of starting at 0, it'll start at whatever number I put there. So if I wanted to start at 50 like it has, then it'll start at frame 50 instead of 0. All right, so I'm going to say I want this number here to equal time offset 40, which is this one, dot time underscore offset. Okay. So if I set it to that, and then this number is now 50 and 50. If I set this one to 20, you'll see the other one goes to 20. If I set this to 30, then that one goes to 30. So if I'm trying to link attributes together, this is an easy way to do it. If I'm trying to offset attributes, it's still an easy way to do it. I'm going to right click and go to edit. And instead of this being a one-for-one connection, I'm just going to add the number 1 to this. So now if this is 40, then that one's 41. And so if this is 60, now that one's 61. So what that means is when I go and I say, okay, the swipe happens at frame 40 or 20, that means that all of them are automatically going to offset one after the other, instead of me having to go ahead and set keyframes on every single one of those pieces. And then if something happens, I have to go back in there and reset those keyframes again. So all of these things, that's why you see all these green lines right here. All of those are expressions connecting this time offset to all these other time offsets. And all they're doing is the first one is +1, the second one is +2, the third one is +3, and so on all the way down the line until we get to this very last one. Because they're all synced up like that, it works perfectly. Now, the other part here, this mix, I also set up. So I'm going to just say no animation, yes. And if we look at this copy here, you'll see this is blue. I'm going to right click and edit this expression. And then I will copy it and I will paste it into, oops, this one. Time offset 41. Okay, so let's close all these windows. I'm going to open up my copy. I'm going to open up the time offset. And let me see what that was. Yep. All right, so this is linked to this one. So if I set this to, let's say, 50, you'll see this number still stays 1. If I set this to 234 or 5, that gets set to 0, okay? What it's doing is, I'll open this up in WordPad so we can take a closer look at it, it is just creating a more complex thing. Instead of doing a this equals this or this equals this plus another number, it's basically saying if the frame that we're currently on is greater than whatever number you punched in for that offset, then this is what you're going to do. If it's not, set it to 1, or if it is, set it to 1. If it's not, then keep it at 0, okay? So that's what that whole mess means. So basically, every time I adjust this time offset of when to actually start that transition off, I want this to transition to frame 50. When I go to 49, you'll see the mix is 0. I have to fix this one because now this one is before that. There we go. When I go to this one and set this to 50, it's on right now, or it's off right now. When I hit play, it automatically goes off. And again, it's just making my job easier because I don't have to go through and set keyframes on this. All I'm doing is just telling it when to go off here and when to go on there. That's all I have to do. If the animator changes things, I change those 2 numbers and everything else is set up, okay? So again, just an easy way for us to do that. It sounds complex if you've never done it, which obviously we haven't. But if you just go through and set things up correctly once, you can copy and paste it over and over and over again, and you can see that's exactly what each one of these things is, okay? Now, I have another one where I needed to create those blips to happen in the exact spot. So let's go here. So I went into After Effects. I made a little blip animation. Let me rewind it so I can see it. There it is. Okay. I rendered this out as a TIFF with an alpha channel. So inside of After Effects, when I went to render, there it is, I made sure that I chose TIFF, and then I made sure I changed this to RGB and alpha. Okay, and then I rendered it out like normal. So I just have this sequence. I pre-multiplied it so it applies the alpha channel. Okay, so there's transparency on it. And then I needed 3 of them. He touches the screen 3 times. So I don't need to bring it in 3 times. All I need to do is 1 time offset for the first one, and then a transform to place it, and then a merge to put it together with the original footage. Another time offset for the second one, another transform to position it, and another merge to connect it in. Another time offset for the third, another transform, and another merge. Okay? So that's all I'm doing is basically I have this piece of footage, I'm merging it. To get it to be transparent, I click this. To change the timing, I do that. To change the position, I did that. And I just have to connect those things like that. So then what I did is I went down here to my end product so I could see it. Way here at the bottom. The first one happens around 77, so I'm going to go here to 75. What? And there we go. And so what I did was I watched where he was hitting. Now this process goes slow because the frames don't update very fast because I have so much stuff happening in the background. All right, so I'm going to speed that up a little bit. This is how I speed it up. Here's all of my geometry nodes for all those cards. I'm going to grab all of them except for the one that I want and hit D, and that disables them. So that one is enabled. So now when I come here and I'm viewing this, all I'm focusing in on just that one. So now I can go back to, there's 76. I can probably turn this back up now. All right, so there's 76 is where he hits it. So what I do is I go up here to my stuff. I'm going to go to my time offset and just set this to something before 76. It happened to be 68. That worked out good. But let's say I set this to 63. Now I can see a perfect circle right there, maybe 64, 65, 66. There we go, okay? So 66, probably 67 would be a magic number too. There we go. And then I can go to the transform and then just nudge this over. And I'm just using these and the scroll wheel to adjust the exact spot that that's hitting. Then when I'm satisfied with it, I'll go back and fix my offset. In my mind, he hits it and then it happens. I need to make sure that it doesn't like happen as he's going towards it. So maybe even 69. Then when I hit play, I can preview this. And again, because I don't have all that other stuff slowing me down, this process should happen a lot quicker. And then once it's done, I'll just click back here. There we go. So boom. Cool. So it looks like he's hitting right at the spot where they come out. Okay, now again, I tried that in After Effects. I couldn't get the positioning right, so I just said, screw it. I'm going to do it inside of Nuke. More nodes, more complexity, but it works. And I have complete control over it. If you click the thing 10 more times, it's just another time offset, another transform, another merge. That's all it is. So now I'm going to re-enable all of these things. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to show today is this. As we have 3 cameras, every time we switch to a different camera, we have to go into the camera node and switch the camera read file to say, now we're reading the sweep, now we're reading the left, now we're reading the right. And then we have to come down here to our footage and read in the ground or the right, read in the sweep, or read in the left, okay? So what we're going to do is we can use actually what's called a switch node. And the way it works is you connect one item to this one item to this one. I'll just create a couple constants. There we go. So 0 is here, that's the first one, there's 1, and you'll see the arrow comes out, there's 2. Now when I go into this switch, I can just choose which one I want to see. And you can see how it highlights the arrow to show me which one it's reading. So basically, if I have 3 different cameras, I read each one of these cameras into it, I can switch my cameras simply by typing in a different number here. I can go to this, that's my middle one, this is my left one, and then that's my right one, okay? So that's what I do. I'm going to delete this. Here's my switch. Okay, right now it's connected to these 3 pieces of footage. I did it as left is 0, 1 is middle, and 2 is right. So if I double click the switch, I say I want to see the left camera, I hit 0. Now I'm looking at the left camera. If I want to see the right one, I hit 2, and now I'm looking at the right one. So very easily I can switch between these without actually having to drag arrows to connect different nodes together. Whoops. Sir? You could, but we wouldn't want to. What we want to do is render all of them out and then go into After Effects and cut it up there. That way if we want to transition like a fade or something, we can do that. Okay. Now, I have a switch node here on the footage, and then I also have a switch node here on the cameras. So I just brought in 3 different cameras, and then this one is connected to the left file, this one's connected to the sweep, this one's connected to the right. And then you'll see the green arrow connecting these. Green arrows mean expressions. Those 2 are connected. So that if I go into, let me close all my millions of things here. Whoops. If I go to the very bottom of this, right now I'm looking through my middle camera, my sweeping camera. If I set this to 0, that automatically sets my left camera for the actual camera and the footage. If I set it to 2, that switches me to the other side. So very easily I can jump around and make sure that what I'm seeing is working in all my cameras. Okay? And then when I go to render out, all I have to do is render it like this. This is cam sweep. And then switch this to 1, render that out, then switch this to 2, and then render that out. It's very easy to do if it's set up like that. You're free to do it the way going through and changing the nodes every single time. But again, you're here to make sure that you understand how to do this stuff and to push your skills. So yeah, get a little bit of struggle and make the stuff work correctly. Okay? I'll go over the rest of this stuff another day. And the rest of that is still the same stuff. Okay? But again, it benefits you to have, nice footage. I was getting a weird thing when I rendered too, just to mention it, but my stuff was like disappearing. Like he would swipe, the stuff would be there, and then all the screens would go away. I don't know why, I'm still looking into that. But it looks, again, more impressive when you have all those pieces of footage there versus there's nothing there, or there's 3 of them, right? Cool. All right, any questions on that yet? No? All right.